Why do girls like bad boys instead of nice guys? So before we get into it, we need to carefully define the term bad boy and the term nice guy. Now, red pill advocates would have you believe that bad boy is basically a psychopath, a borderline evil personality who has the dark triad hypermasculine traits of Machiavellianism, ruthlessness, and psychopathy. He's lacking in conscience, he's selfish, he's powerful, rude, manipulative, greedy, uncaring, cool, dominating and menacing. He's a leader. He's capable of great violence. He's confrontational. He's hypersexual and promiscuous, disagreeable, unconventional. These are the kinds of things you often see associated with the term bad boy. And there's almost like the archetype of the bad boy, isn't it? Riding motorcycles, making money in a semi-shady, semi-legal way, getting into fights, maybe doing drugs, bullying, teasing people, physical excellence, that kind of thing. So that list goes on, and there's even a relatively new term in the manosphere called the Sigma male. I suppose it's kind of an old term now. And it's the latest update to the cliched and misunderstood term alpha male. So a Sigma is kind of like this lone wolf. They often use the character Patrick Bateman from American Psycho, which I think is kind of ironic because he was a psychopathic serial killer. He prioritizes being respected over everything else, including compassion for other people. Has no real emotional attachment to others. A nice guy is often described as someone who demonstrates mostly passive or feminine traits. Caring, compassion, patient, accepting, loving, submissive, kind. They're a follower, they're subservient, they avoid conflict and try to moderate everything, they sacrifice themselves for others. They're sexually inert, passive, or monogamous, or celibate, involuntarily celibate, some of them. Generally a bit of a pushover. Probably associate nice guys with being reliable, helping out even when it's inconvenient to them, being the shoulder to cry on, never having a bad word to say about anybody else or anything, being funny and entertaining, and achieving highly, conscientious in work. They do well in all the things that are very socially acceptable. The problem with these labels, when you believe these definitions or some variation of them, and you think that they accurately describe the traits associated to those bad boys and what separates them from nice guys in terms of success with women, you might be tempted to start thinking, I need to be more of a psychopath. The problem is what red pillers especially fail to see is the nuance as to why these two types of men have different results with women. Being a psychopathic threat is not actually what's attractive. One thing you got to understand is that very recent research into psychopathy shows that very promiscuous psychopaths inevitably end up quite dissatisfied in their later years with their social life and with their love life because they destroy their partnerships and their social circles on such a regular basis with the kind of behavior that we've been talking about. And they usually end up alone and unloved. So they might get laid more often, and even that's debatable, and the quality of that sex or who they're with is debatable. But maintaining a loving relationship is just simply outside of their capability. When you've got strong dark triad traits, you basically cannot connect with another person. They are just an object, a conquest to you. They're just pieces on the chessboard. It's very impossible for you to love them or for them to love you back. They can love the manipulation, but they can't love you. And most of the time, the people they are able to seduce are people who aren't doing well psychologically. So, yeah, you might get laid, but it's going to be with people who are emotionally unstable and mentally ill for the most part. And that's going to lead you to having quite a dramatic and exhausting social life. Okay. You're going to get into lots of conflicts. You're going to have lots of problems with your relationships. You're not going to be surrounded by healthy, brilliant people. You're going to be surrounded by people who look good on the outside and are rotten on the inside. It's kind of like buying a crappy car because it's got a great paint job or because it's a well-known and popular brand. Women are attracted to bad boys because they have some of the confident traits that they prefer, and they're not finding those traits in other men. A woman doesn't actually want a dangerously harmful partner who doesn't care about her. The only kind of woman who would actually want that is one who is significantly traumatized and damaged, somebody who's very mentally unwell. Women do not actually want to be treated like shit. They don't want to have their hearts stomped on, but they do want certain strong qualities in their partners, certain women do, and they struggle to find these qualities elsewhere. You'll find that most women will actually prefer, at least anticipate preferring, being in a long-term loving relationship with a man who's kind and thoughtful and compassionate and caring and responsible. It's just that they want more than that. They also need a man who's got balls and a spine. And that's actually a priority when it comes to attraction. So being nice is not necessarily unattractive unless it's missing elements. See, nice guys lack the healthy masculine traits that a kind of generic, stereotypical woman is looking for, because they're not only attractive, but necessary to survival. They're necessary to being a good father. They're necessary to being an effective partner. And bad boys have many of those traits: assertiveness, bravery, leadership, skepticism, autonomy, even the aggressive ruthlessness that's sometimes required to protect our loved ones. And nice guys simply lack that spinal column. What I want you to open your mind to is the idea of the third option, what we'll just call the confident man. He's neither a bad boy nor is he a nice guy. He's got all the helpful traits of both and none of the sickness or toxicity. See, bad boys and nice guys are equally fucked up. All right. Being a bad boy doesn't mean you're emotionally healthier or psychologically healthier than a nice guy. You've just simply applied a different manipulation strategy. Nice guys are very, very manipulative. Everything they do is carefully designed to make people like them. Well, bad boys are just as manipulative, and everything they do is designed to get them outcomes. All of these people are very, very insecure and have a very unstable core. So bad boys are toxic and highly insecure bullies. They're incapable of maintaining loving connections and taking really masculine responsibility for their lives. They destroy their loved ones and their own lives with their compulsive behaviors. And they're reluctant to cooperate in any way that would even be helpful to themselves. Whereas nice guys, they're weak and passive. They're also incapable of creating a loving connection due to their complete absence of sexuality and their emotional dysfunction and shame. They poison relationships one little bit at a time, provoking resentment and scorn and eventually contempt due to their lack of self-respect and courage. Well, let's look at that third option, the confident man, who's got all of the bad boys' masculine strengths and all of the nice guys' feminine power, but none of the insecure shit. He's assertive and compassionate. He respects himself and other people. He chooses his own path while considering how it will affect his loved ones and making adjustments without compromising himself. He'll kill for you, but never use excessive force. He can hate fuck you or make love to you depending on your preferences. Plus, he's got traits that neither bad boys or nice guys have. For a start, he's honest. This is the main trait that both bad boys and nice guys lack. Bad boys might appear to be brutally honest, but it's more of a manipulation tactic. They like to kind of dominate and intimidate with rough facts, but they're not going to express deep, vulnerable emotions, are they? Both bad boys and nice guys are indirect about the truth. They're not transparent, especially if it might compromise their outcomes. Deep down, they're both scared of losing what they want. Whereas a confident man does what's right because it's right, and he'll lose whatever he needs to lose in order to maintain his integrity. Confident man's responsible. Bad boys avoid taking ownership of their lives. They tend to be blamers. They leave everybody else to clean up their mess. They mimic responsibility by being rebellious and contrarian, but in reality, they are always running away from the difficult things in life. They don't add anything to society. They don't contribute, and yet they're happy to leech off that same society. They are parasites. Whereas nice guys do what they're told, and they take the path of least resistance. So confident men decide clearly, this is mine. This is what I must manage. This is what I must take full responsibility for. And so that's my job. I'm not going to complain. This is my duty. And a confident man is actually focused on other people. He's got his own shit so sorted that he doesn't need to be thinking about himself all the time. Whereas both bad boys and nice guys are very self-centered to the point of narcissism on both sides. Everything a bad boy and a nice guy does is for their own immediate gratification. It's always about them and them getting their needs met. Whereas confident guys are so fulfilled that they look at helping others. Their cup spills over. So they can lead without force. They can care for people without caretaking. They can just be the light. They can make the world a better place without any attachment to being appreciated or getting something in return. Still, why do bad boys get favored over nice guys? I think in the end, the main answer is that the traits the bad boy has that the nice guy lacks are the sexier traits. So they're more obviously attractive in the early stages of relationship building. I've noticed a pattern whereas the girls I've known, and this doesn't speak for all women by any means, have lost interest in bad boys as they've gotten older and had their heart broken a few times, and they start to become attracted to nice guys. It's like nice guys were next in the queue. They don't finish last, but they certainly have to wait till second. So ultimately, when it comes to short-term sexual rewards, the bad boy's more likely to temporarily fulfill those needs. And so he's more likely to seduce a woman into thinking he's genuinely confident. It might take her a few days or weeks to figure out that he is rotten in the core. He can put on a good show, especially if she's insecure and she doubts herself. He'll be able to use that and leverage that against her. But as the research shows, he will end up being strongly disliked. He'll end up being surrounded by either no one or very toxic, unhealthy people who are the only ones who can accept him and tolerate him long term. Whereas a nice guy might be liked and even loved for years and surrounded by people, but it's all fake. And nobody really gets intimate with him, and he struggles in sexual and romantic relationships. So I say, why bother being either of them? Why be a nice guy or a bad boy when they both end up alone and miserable, basically? And they require you to be fake and harmful to others. And it's not necessary. There is this third option. The confident man I'm talking about is you, or could be. It's who you'd be if you weren't traumatized and insecure and a slave to your impulses and conditioning. You can change. You can become the confident man that has all the good stuff and none of the shit stuff. You just have to make a dedicated effort towards it. If you're a nice guy, you need to become more assertive. If you're a bad boy, you need to become more compassionate and so on. But it's taking the longer journey, the longer path. You have to work on yourself. You have to take responsibility for yourself. You have to be vulnerably honest. You have to accept that any difficult things that happen for you socially, any unsatisfying things that happen for you socially are caused by you and therefore must be repaired by you. And anyone can do this. I've had clients who are quite high up in the narcissism scale, and I've had clients who are the weakest, spineless, people-pleasing types ever. And all of them can move away from the spectrum of insecurity and become confident, but they have to work at it. So if you're willing to do that work, you can have different results. If you want help doing that work, please get in touch, dan@brojo.org. We can talk about coaching.